In 1971, an ad in the newspaper offered $15 a day to male college students to participate in a study. More than 75 people responded to the advert, but only 24 were chosen to take part. The study was headed by Stanford professor Philip Zimbardo. He wanted to understand the development of social norms. So out of the 24, 12 were selected to take the role of the prisoners, while the other 12 were given the role of the guards. The experiment would take place in the basement of Jordan Hall, where prisoners were given a strict set of rules, some of which included prisoners having to stay quiet during leisurely hours, only being referred to by their prison number, and only being allowed to use the bathroom for 5 minutes at a time. If anyone failed to follow any of these rules, they would be punished. Guards, on the other hand, were given a brief orientation to not physically hurt the inmates, but to keep law and order and prevent escapes, as well as being instructed to disrespect prisoners and make them feel hopeless and submissive. August 15th, 1971, the experiment will officially begin. It was planned to last for 2 weeks, and participants who were to play the role of the prisoners were arrested at their homes by surprise by Palo Alto police. They were handcuffed, searched, read their rights, and driven in a police car to the police station for booking and fingerprinting. 5 prisoners were charged with burglary, while the other 4 were charged with armed robbery. 2 days into the experiment, the prisoners started to rebel after being woken up at 2 a.m. They refused to leave their cells, ripped off their inmate numbers, and began to insult the guards. So to regain order, they would be sprayed with fire extinguishers, have their beds taken away as well as their clothes, and some were put in the hole, a small dark closet that was about 2 feet wide and 2 feet deep. On the 3rd day, guards began to abuse their power by making prisoners do push-ups randomly and restricting their bathroom use, instead making them pee in a bucket. Also, in order to prevent any more rebellions, they gave the prisoners with minimal roles in the rebellion special privileges, like clothes and food that was denied from the rest of the prison. As this was happening, prisoner number 8612 started having a mental breakdown and was later removed from the project. Day 4 had guards dividing up prisoners based on behavior, and this had prisoners split from each other as they believed the other prisoners were snitches and vice versa. Prisoner number 819 started crying in his cell after showing signs of distress, so they sent a priest to talk to him. This didn't work, and he instead asked for a doctor. The doctor would remove him from the experiment, and as he left, the guards urged the remaining prisoners to chant insults at the man. The 5th day began with family members visiting their sons. They were made to wait long periods of time before actually seeing them, and when they did, they began to worry about their child's well-being. Some parents left with plans of contacting their lawyers to get their child released early. Later that same day, Zimbardo's colleague wanted to see the progress of the experiment and became disgusted as she watched the guards abuse the prisoners and make them walk around with bags over their heads, which is where this image came from. She questioned the morality of the experiment and began to berate him about how he changed into a person she did not recognize. This resulted in Zimbardo ending the experiment early, offering to pay the participants for the full 14 days, which equaled to $210, about $1,500 in today's money. Everyone came together to share their experiences, and were even invited back a week later to share their opinion on the experiment. After the experiment ended, the prison was dismantled and Zimbardo collected his data. Despite the emotional stress from the experiment, all the participants seemed to have left with no lasting trauma after the fact. And after the public learned of the experiment, they called it unethical, but Zimbardo considered the experiment a success and claimed it proved that humans would turn on their belief system when provided with the power. This seemingly innocent photo shows John Lennon signing an autograph for one of his many fans. Little did he know, this man would go on to murder him a few hours later. The man was Mark Chapman, a former security guard from Honolulu in Hawaii, who was actually a big Beatles fan at one point. He grew up idolizing Lennon, but after becoming a born-again Christian, he became enraged at the singer for saying that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus, and that he didn't believe in God or the Beatles. So on October 27, 1980, he purchased a .38 revolver and flew to New York intending to murder Lennon, but later changed his mind. He then went back on December 6 and checked into the Sheraton Hotel, where he staged his hotel room with a couple of his personal items for the police to find after he killed Lennon. He purchased a book called The Catcher in the Rye, which pushed him further to the conclusion that Lennon was a hypocrite and a phony. At around 5 p.m., Lennon had just finished a photo shoot and what would be his last interview. And as he and his wife were walking back to their limousine, he saw Chapman there waiting for him. He shook Chapman's hand, and that's when Chapman asked Lennon to sign his copy of his album, which is when this picture was taken. Lennon asked him if he needed anything else, and Chapman responded, no sir, and Lennon walked away. Lennon returned later on around 10:50. He wanted to say goodbye to his son before going to a restaurant with his wife. This is when Lennon passed Chapman to get to the entrance of the building, and seconds later, Chapman fired 5 shots at Lennon, 2 of them hitting Lennon in the back, 2 hitting him in his left shoulder, and 1 completely missing him. It was reported that Lennon staggered up the stairs yelling, I'm shot, before collapsing to the ground. A security guard rushed over to disarm Chapman and yelled at him saying, do you know what you just did? To which Chapman responded, I just killed John Lennon. Lennon was brought to the hospital and was pronounced dead at 11:15 p.m. Chapman pleaded guilty to the murder and was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison. He has been denied parole 12 times since he became eligible in 2000. This photo shows 3 girls taking a selfie near some train tracks, but in the top right corner, you can see the train that moments later would crash into them, leading to their tragic deaths. The girls Essa Ricker, Kelsey Webster, and Savannah Webster were at a train track in Fort Canyon in Utah. According to their grandmother, the 3 girls loved nature and wanted to take some pictures of the fall. So as they were outdoor exploring, they probably saw the train pull off and wanted a picture next to it, thinking nothing harmful of it. Initially, they were standing a safe distance from the tracks, and even waved to the engineers of the first locomotive as it passed them by. A short while later, the girls moved in closer to the train, in between 2 train tracks to take a selfie. Everything was fine until, unbeknown to the girls, a Union Pacific train rapidly approached them from the opposite direction. The engineer of the train, Michael Anderson, blared the horn of the train to get the girls' attention, but to no avail. The train tried to stop, but it takes trains approximately a mile to come to a complete stop, speeding at about 60 miles per hour. The train conductor, John Anderson, said they saw the girls for about 12 seconds before they disappeared from sight. According to police, they think that the powerful wind from the train caused them to fly into one train, which knocked them back into the other one. After the train finally stopped, John went back to check if the girls were okay, but when he got back, 2 of the girls were clearly deceased, with the only surviving one being Savannah. She was responsive, but in a lot of pain, so they brought her to the hospital where she was slipped into a coma. She had several broken bones, internal bleeding, blood clots, and severe brain injuries. Savannah later died in the hospital on Tuesday, October 18, 2011, just 3 days after the accident. Life was never the same for their parents, nor John or Michael Anderson. The deaths of these girls left their town devastated and serves as a reminder to always be careful near train tracks.